Hey there, pioneers. Welcome to the Reflections Cast, designed to immerse you in teachings about goal setting, dream building, and all things dynamic living. Join us for inspiring conversations as we unwrap these topics and offer insights for seeking positive change in your life. Here's Season 2, Episode 3, The Unattainable Goal. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Steve.
And I'm Melody.
And we are so excited to get into this week of discussion with you all. We've got an awesome talk from Skip that we're going to be breaking down afterwards. But before we do, I wanted to make sure at the top of the show to invite you guys to give us some feedback. You can send us emails, but we'd really like maybe a comment on our YouTube channel or on our Spotify, or even sending us a voicemail on Spotify would be really cool. And we love to hear from you. We love to see what the trajectory of the show should be, and if what we're doing is connecting, or you're liking it, or you want us to stop and change something. We are listening, and it also helps get the word out about the podcast so that other people can join us in these discussions as well. All right. And so getting into it, I did want to, at the top of the show, I just want to remind you guys that there are so many different things that we are pursuing right now in terms of getting this kind of content out into the world. And probably my favorite is the Circle A Summit. It is an awesome time where you get to come together with people from all around the world. Literally every part of the globe comes, and we delve into topics of discussion like what you'd be hearing on this podcast, but also all different areas of life and living. And it's a wonderful time. If you enjoy what we do here on the podcast, you got to check it out. It's not just about discussions, though. This is like a family camp experience, not like your traditional summer camp, but it's a mix of like a retreat plus a summer camp. So if you've got kids, we've got some incredible activities, incredible fun, incredible experiences that they will remember for a lifetime, as well as some really in-depth seminars, discussion times, all exploring this idea of dynamic living and goal setting, and just a wonderful experience that definitely changes people's lives every year all around the world. So we invite you guys to join us. If that sounds like something you're interested in, check out more information on that at circleacamp.com. It is got everything you need up there in terms of dates and times and pricing and whatever flights, so that you can join us this summer for Circle A Summit. But aside from that, we have lots of different things that we are doing online and around the world as well. And Melody, could you talk a little bit more about some of those things that we're doing?
I would love to. So we have got some things going on in the social media world that we want to make sure you guys are aware of. We have got Circle A has an Instagram and a Facebook, and we would love to invite you guys to follow us. On Facebook, we're Circle A. On Instagram, we're Circle A Insta. And there you're going to be able to find all of the postings of the Reflections Cast, all of the information about the Circle A Summit, and some things about the Pioneer Circle, as well as just some other Circle A content that will brighten your days. So check us out there. And then we are just launching a new social media for the Pioneer Circle. It's going to be specifically kind of catered to that young adult demographic that we are serving in the Pioneer Circle by resourcing them to live well through the changing of an age. And so we would love to invite you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. It's Pioneer Circle, and you can check us out there. We're going to have really a lot of awesome content over the next few months as we ramp up towards the summit. And so we would love to have you give us a follow and check it out.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Melody. Those links will definitely be in the show notes. Check out those socials and stay connected with all the things that we're doing here, Circle A or Pioneer Circle or podcast related. We'd love to have you guys listening in and giving us feedback on those platforms. Okay. So here we are. We are at the third installment of this series that Skip has been doing on why people don't set goals. And today we are going to be talking about 3 different points. We really have it crammed in here. So this is going to be a big time with Skip. And I hope that you guys enjoy it. Get your notepads ready, because this is kind of the conclusion of this point in the overall discussion of goal setting. And so he really does a great job of encapsulating some of his thoughts at the end here. So enjoy it. We will be back with you on the flip side. Here's Skip.
The 4th reason. Many people inadvertently fight goal setting by habitually setting goals too high. Do you know anybody that whenever they set a goal, they always just blow the lid right off the top of the goal, and they set it way too high? Now, a part of the reason that people set goals too high is that with the expectation, they are enabled to constantly play the victim or just plain cop out of the goal. They can maintain that big, unrealistic, too big goal right up until the last minute, and then they can simply say, well, I know I can't reach that goal, so I just won't try. If you do that often enough, and it doesn't take very many times, you and I would come to the place where we just won't set goals. We won't set real goals. We will, as these people do, set them too high because there's never any need to work toward the accomplishing of a goal that is obviously beyond accomplishment. It is quite amazing to me when I began to think about these types of reasons why people don't set goals, how creative the human mind can be in terms of what we do to justify, to rationalize, to kid ourselves, to mislead ourselves. We get very creative in the process. And much of it happens, as we have said before, at that unconscious level. So, in order to get past these reasons why people don't set goals, I have to sit down from time to time and say, is any of this affecting me? As I did in more detail with the first one. Is there something I fear in change? Do I set goals that are unreasonably high so that I can cop out of them? Which is basically the same as not setting a goal. Number 5, there are people that don't set goals because of the fear of losing or the fear of failure. Last night in our time together, I mentioned that wherever we were seemed to be a good time to talk about a better approach to failure and what failure really is. And if last night was good, tonight is even a better point to do that. But I have resisted it to not launch into that because, as I told you, that's a long discussion. But we've got to come to the point where we see failure as our friend. Got to see failure with a new perspective on it. Failure is the price I pay for success. If it's the price I pay for success and it leads me to success, then it is my friend because I want to be successful. But there are people who will not set a goal because they're afraid if they set the goal, and particularly if they make that goal obvious and everybody becomes aware of it, that when they don't reach the goal, they will be perceived as a loser or a failure. And they can't face the possibility of being a loser or a failure, and therefore do not set the goal. They are afraid they will be criticized. Most of us don't like to be criticized. Many of us are not really afraid of being criticized, but we don't like it. So even if it's not a really strong roadblock to setting goals, it may be enough just to keep you trying to maintain the status quo. There are people who don't like to be made fun of. If you set a goal and you publish it, people are aware of it, and you don't make it, it's hard to hide the fact that you had one you didn't make and that you fell short, and there are people who will laugh at you as a result of that. They will ridicule that. Some of them will ridicule when you set the goal. Some of them will ridicule when you're trying to reach the goal, and they will culminate in real ridicule when you don't reach the goal. So for that reason, because we all have experienced that at all of those different stages once or twice in our lives, because of that, we began then to project from that to a larger group of people who are watching everything we do. Therefore, they will criticize, they will ridicule, and we don't want to be criticized or ridiculed. Therefore, we don't set the goal. I have made what I think is an important discovery for me. And that is that most people don't pay a whole lot of attention to whether I make my goals or I don't. Most people really don't care whether I make my goals or not. They don't care whether I set goals. They are not watching. Most people will not laugh or ridicule or criticize me. Much of what I have used as a fear of failure or losing as a reason why I don't set goals would never happen anyhow, because nobody is watching. Nobody cares. Now that's admittedly an overstatement. When I say nobody, it's probably not nobody, but it's pretty close. There aren't many who are watching you to see if you accomplish your goals. And still fewer who, if they do notice once in a while whether or not you've set and are working on your goals, fewer that will notice whether you make them or you don't. That's the reason why we can set a goal, reach the goal, get very excited about it, and then get bummed out because nobody congratulated us. They didn't congratulate because they didn't know you had a goal. Somehow by telepathy, married couples do this a lot. Somehow by telepathy, she ought to know what it is I want and what I'm working on. And when she doesn't respond, I get angry with her for not commenting on something she didn't even know I was after. You say, Skip, that's stupid. Yes, it is. But it happens, and it happens a lot. I won't quantify that by percentages tonight, but it happens a lot to a lot of people. Susan and I have tried to work on that over the course of our 41 years together. And I think we don't do very much mental telepathy stuff anymore. Is that right? So you can work through that. Number 6. Why do people not set goals? Number 6, the fear of success. Ironically, number 5 was the fear of failure. Number 6 is the fear of success. Many do not set goals because they cannot visualize themselves being capable of handling the new success that would come if that goal actually became reality. I mean, if I really If I really developed and owned a worldwide business, how in the world would I ever manage that? I couldn't, I can't, therefore I won't set the goal. It is the fear of success that keeps some from moving on. They somehow do not believe they can handle it, or more frequently, they do not believe they deserve it. And if I do not believe that I deserve a goal that I'm trying to set, it's not likely that I will really set the goal. I'll back away from it. So if we begin to put together these 6 things in the life of an individual, I mean, if someone is afraid of change and they've been conditioned to never set goals, and they are kind of magical in their thinking, kind of sit back and wait, not person of action, and they if they do set a goal, it's way too high and it's obviously can't be done, and then they're afraid of failure, and then they're afraid of success. If we put any 2 or 3 of those things together, we have a powerful reason why they would never become a goal setter. Now, there may be many other reasons. You may have some of your own. You may have sat down with yourself one day and said, "Self, you and I are going to have a little conversation about why you are not a goal setter." And maybe you came up with the conclusion, "I'm lazy." Maybe you came up with some other conclusion, some reason we haven't listed here. If that's your reason, then my suggestion is deal with it.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Just as we promised, a little extra time with Skip this week, so we can kind of get all of these thoughts together as we look at these reasons why people don't set goals. And again, like I said, these episodes are a little challenging. They're inviting us to go pretty deep, but I think that's so good, so that we can see what's holding us back and make conscious choices about those things. So in this episode, he talks about these last few reasons why people don't set goals. And the first one he talks about is a tough one. Habitually setting goals too high. Essentially, people setting goals so high so that they can cop out of them, or maybe even if it's not a conscious, like I'm setting this so that I already know I can't do it, but it's kind of like just an unconscious goal should be set this high to make them worthwhile goals. And then we kind of go through the process, and when it comes time to the deadline, it's so far away that we just say, well, I can't do it now, so I won't even try. And what happens if we do this too often is that we learn that we can't trust ourselves to meet these goals, and then we stop setting goals at all. The next one he talks about is the fear of failure, or the fear of losing, anticipating criticism or ridicule, or just, missing the mark on the goal that we set. And he says, this is a great quote that he says in this one: "We've got to come to the point where we see failure as our friend. We've got to see failure with a new perspective. Failure is the price I pay for success." Ooh, that's a good one. Going to take that one with us for sure. He talks about fear of ridicule, and then he kind of debunks that a little bit by saying, like, probably no one's really noticing if you're making your goals or not. People don't really care that much about other people's goals and whether they're making progress or not. And he's right about that. We're all pretty self-centered creatures. So that it helps to have that one debunked in this episode. And then he also talks about the fear of success, which is essentially when we doubt our ability to handle the success that we might achieve, or we doubt our deservedness of that success. Or another piece of it that I have seen is just we don't want to do the work that comes along with the success. And so we don't set goals for those reasons as well. And then at the end, he kind of just asked us to think about which reasons we relate to, which are these are the reasons that we might not be setting goals, because if we can identify those reasons and we can confront them, then we can overcome them and we can become effective goal setters. So great episode. Love the teaching. What did you think, Stephen?
I love this one too. He definitely hints that he has a much larger discussion on this idea of making failure your friend and that the price of success is failure. And I hope that in this series, he explores it more in depth. But if he doesn't, I definitely have a few seminars that we could dig out of the vault to delve into. But yeah, no, this was a great final couple of points that, you know, the whole series is, I don't want to say it's a slightly uncomfortable, but it's relatable, right? Like, yeah, I can see like, oh yeah, that is, I have done that. Oh, I have felt that. This is true. What he's saying. And I've seen that or whatever. So yeah, I think it was a great, branch of the discussion on goal setting to delve down, and I'm glad that he did it. But I do have questions on it.
All right, let's do it.
And the very first one that I wanted to delve into is about talking about failure. And I know that I don't know specifically if he's going to go into further depth on talking about failure, but I would like to in our discussion. So my first question deals with that. And that is, how do we look at failure really as a friend? Are there tools that we can use to help get us into that right headspace about failing like that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's one that I'm still learning. I think it's one that Dad was still learning all throughout his life. I think some of us are more wired to be averse to failure than others. I don't know. But I think that, you know, all of us don't enjoy failure. And so it's really hard to embrace the positives of a failure experience, certainly in the moment, but even looking back at it. So yeah, there are tools. I know one of Dad's favorite books on this subject was a John Maxwell book called Failing Forward. I've read it. It's a very good book. I know that Dad read it many times. So that's one that I could recommend. Also, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. It's not specifically about failure, but it's kind of opening our minds up to grace for ourselves. And so I think that helps us to make failure a friend. And then another book I thought of, there's a lot of books on failure, but I don't want to recommend ones that I haven't read. But this one I thought of, it's called Necessary Endings, and it's a book by Henry Cloud. And it's a book about relationships that end and or jobs, seasons in life that end, basically. And it's really beautiful, really important. I think when we're going through big endings in our lives, which can frequently feel like failures, to realize that sometimes what we're experiencing is not actually a failure at all. Sometimes it's simply the necessary next step in our lives, in our stories. So I think that's one way to make failure a friend, is to realize not everything we call a failure actually is a failure. That's a big one. But then secondly, you know, there are actual failures that we experience. Certainly in the context of goal setting, if we set a goal and then we don't meet it, it could certainly be called a failure. Myself, for example, last year I had 10 annual goals for the year, and I made 8 out of 10 of them, which I'm very proud of the 8 that I accomplished, but there's 2 on that list that I did not achieve. And so essentially those are failures. But I don't necessarily look at them as failures. I look at them as opportunities to say, well, why didn't I achieve these 2 things? And what do I want to do about it? do I want to set them as a goal again? Do I want to change something about them so that I can achieve them? Do I want to change something about the way that I'm going about achieving them so that I can see success? And it's really just a learning opportunity to say, there's something that stopped me from achieving these two things in 2023. So what do I want to do about that in the next year? And even if I decided what I'm going to do about that is to just toss those goals out and not work towards achieving them anymore. If I decided that from a place of intention and awareness, then I don't think that would be a failure. I think that would be a success because it makes room for something that's more important to me. So I don't know. Those are a few resources. Like you said, we could unpack this one for a long time, but there's a few resources to get started.
Awesome. Well, I will put as many of those into our show notes as I can and have Amazon affiliates that help support the podcast as well. So thank you for those tools. All right. Now, moving on to question number 2 then. This one delves a little bit, into this idea of the last little bit that he talked about the fear of success. And I wanted to just talk it doesn't need to be a real robust discussion, but just exploring this idea a little bit more thoroughly about like the mechanics of how you could be afraid of something that you want and it's good for you, but yet you still have this dread of attaining it. Are there ways that we can identify that is what is holding us back from getting into the right headspace towards pursuing our goals? Is it something that is very apparent to us, or is it more of like a subconscious or unconscious deterrent to pursuing goals that we just need to be aware of?
Yeah, this is an important one. And I do think this one can be a little bit less conscious than some of these. It might take a little deep digging to notice ourselves enough to see that this is at play. For me, I think I notice it if when I am imagining the goal achieved, it feels stressful in some way, or I'm having some negative synthesis about what my life will be like when I achieve this goal. For example, if it's a weight goal and it's a number that I'm working towards, and I find myself thinking, yeah, but I'll never be able to keep it there. That is a fear of success. Because if I'm spending my time worrying about, it's not just about getting to that number, it's about how hard it's going to be to keep it at that number. Well, then I'm fearing the success of my goal. And so I need to reframe the way that I'm thinking about it, or I'm going to keep unconsciously derailing myself from getting there. I think also, if we are feeling like we don't deserve the success that might come, or if we doubt our ability to handle the success in the terms of, if I become an international bestseller, then I'm going to have to be traveling the world on book tours, and I don't want to travel the world, and so I'll never write a book at all. And so I think that's how we can identify it, is if when we're imagining it, when we're doing the process of visualization, which Dad has certainly taught us to do, and we find ourselves trailing off into some sort of negative thought pattern about what experiencing that success will be like, we have a fear of success. And so we need to deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great response. That totally makes sense. And I think it's a great place for this final question, which instead of me taking up this question time, I'm leaving it with Dad. And I'm just reiterating the question that he posed at the end of this discussion, because I think it's a great thing to reflect on for all of us. And that is, why are you not a goal setter? Or why have you failed to make goals properly, or followed through with them, or continued them? What of these 6 areas do you connect with? And I'm not just asking Melody, I'm asking the audience in general and myself. If there is one of these reasons that you can identify that you'd like more feedback on, or maybe a reason that we didn't discuss in this episode that you'd like to hear more of a discussion on, you can always send us an email at thereflectionscast@gmail.com, and we will explore any of those discussions. So to review, the 6 things that Skip talked about are, well, being afraid of change, being conditioned to never set goals, having this magical thinking of just sitting back and waiting for life to just happen. Or maybe you do set goals, but you set them way too high and are just constantly bombarded with failure. And then maybe that developed a fear of failure, or a fear of losing or being a loser. And then finally, is it a fear of success, of achieving this thing that might bring on more responsibility, more weight than you're prepared to take on? So, are those things that you relate with? If they are, explore it in your own mind as we we don't take a break, but we'll see you next week. And just know that it is our mission to inspire that growth inside of you, inside of all of us, towards becoming a better goal setter, regardless of what childhood influences you had or what experiences you've had with this topic. We can all be better. We can all do better. More consistent goal setting, more consistent change if we take the time, like Skip said, to reflect and analyze and adjust this approach. So, Melody, do you have any closing thoughts on this as we wind down this series on why people don't set goals?
I mean, I think that's a great way to close it as we look inside a little bit after hearing all of this. And, I would just encourage you to be brave and do that internal work, but also be kind to yourself. This isn't about, looking at all the ways that you've missed the mark or, that you're struggling. This is about looking for opportunities to grow. And so I would encourage all of us to do it with a kind heart, and a growth mindset, because that's what it's really all about. So we're excited to delve into the next topic with you guys, but this has been really awesome. And I know it's helped me to set even better goals for 2024. And I'm excited.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melody. I know that everybody got a great episode out of this and much things to think about. And I wanted to say thank you to all of you for joining us on this journey with the Reflections Cast. And remember that your support means everything to us. So if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that like button, write us a review, leave us a voicemail, send us an email, whatever you feel like you can do. And please share this episode with friends, family, or anyone you think might benefit from our discussions. We believe in you, and we are committed to helping you thrive on your journey in discovering all you were created to be. And until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and pass it on.